صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، والحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. وروي عن أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب عليه السلام أنه سأل رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله: يا رسول الله، ما أفضل الأعمال في هذا الشهر، شهر رمضان؟ فقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله: يا أبا الحسن، إن أفضل الأعمال في هذا الشهر الورع عن محارم الله. Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib have asked Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, what is the best thing to do in this month? And Rasulullah, the Prophet, replied, the best deed in this month is abstinence from sins. Among many features of Ramadan that only apply to Ramadan and not to any other month is the value of Ramadan. As if you were here yesterday and I touched upon some of those. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi says, the best month is Ramadan. The best days are in Ramadan. The best month are, the best nights are in Ramadan. And even the best hours and best time. This is one feature of Ramadan. Other feature is that our deeds, the supplications and worship is accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And our prayers are responded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. أعمالكم فيه مقبولة ودعاؤكم فيه مستجاب. In addition to that, even the breath that we make, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala considered that breath as a glorifying. The sleep that we make, it's considered to be a worship toward Allah. نومكم فيه أنفاسكم فيه تسبيح ونومكم فيه عبادة. Of course, there are so many things that a mu'min is recommended to do. If you open any book, any supplication book like Mafatih al-Jinan, you will see a long list of deeds that mu'mineen perform during this month. Among them, recitation of Quran. Among them, the daily prayers, the recommended prayers. Among them, i'tikaf, taking residence in the masjid. Among them is giving food to the fasting people to break their fasting, and for that they will get a big reward. Among them to pay sadaqah and help the poor, visit the sick, visit the relatives, and so many of those a'mal. But the question that was with Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, what he wanted from Rasulullah to pinpoint among all those deeds, which one is the best one? Which one is considered to be preferred by Allah and the Prophet? You see, if you want to do all those a'mal, probably you won't end up having enough time. Especially if you have a heavy schedule. Therefore, Ali ibn Abi Talib have simplified the question for us, simplified the subject, in case we don't have time, then it comes to priority. Put the best thing at the top and do it and go farther and farther. So he asked Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, what is the best deed, ya Rasulullah? Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi said, Al-wara'u an maharim Allah. Self-control, self-restraint from sins and mistakes that we do during the day, during the year. That is the best thing you are supposed to do in this holy month. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi pointing to something important. And that is the preference of a'mal, the preference of things. To what thing we say this is more preferred compared to something lesser preferred in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. At what, by which mechanism, by which indicator you can say that this action or this person or this nation is better than others. There are indicators. For every subject, there is an indicator to tell you what thing is better than other things. For example, when we are speaking of people, the scholars say the best one is the most perfect one. The one who reaches perfection is considered to be the best one. What is perfection? Perfection meaning complete obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Remember yesterday when I talked about taqwa? Do you remember that? When I said that taqwa is total servanthood to Allah and slavery to Allah, that we consider ourselves nothing but only slaves and subordinate to Allah and submitting all our existence to Allah, that is considered to be taqwa. Based on taqwa, people are classified. The Quran says, إِنَّ أَكْرَمَكُمْ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ أَتْقَاكُمْ. So the more perfect you are, and perfection is measured by taqwa, you reach the higher status and closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For example, the prophets are ranked. You have greater prophets, ulul azm, the 5-1, and you have the rest of the prophets. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, تِلْكَ الرُّسُلُ فَضَّلْنَا بَعْضَهُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ. We have ranked the messengers based on what? But based on gaining perfection. The more features of perfection they gain, the higher their stature becomes, the higher their position becomes. Now the question is that, how do they get perfected? Under which circumstance you say that this prophet or this person is a perfect? Is when they pass the test. Consider a student. How can you rank a student? You say that this student is an excellent student. That student is an average student. That student is an F student. Based on what? Based on the test, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also tests and examines the prophets. For example, Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala examines Ibrahim, tests him, a test after test. Quran says, in the ayah, it says, وَإِذِ ابْتَلَى إِبْرَاهِيمَ رَبُّهُ بِكَلِمَاتٍ فَأَتَمَّهُنْ قَالَ إِنِّي جَاعِلُكَ لِلنَّاسِ إِمَامًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has examined Ibrahim. One examination after other examination. And the more he passes, the greater he gets, until he reaches Al-Imam Al-Kubra, the great Imam.